41. 41. It's a lot of weedy weekends. Not all of them have been full of weed. As you all know, my human rights have been stepped on, and I'm not allowed to medicate on certain days of the month when my son's around and on days leading up to me seeing him. So he's here today. Normally, what happens every second weedy weekend, I do them at 6 p.m. at night because it's after I have given them back to his mother. And that way I can cheers with you and we can be a little more open about the discussion rather than me doing it with him here. Sometimes I might even swear, when I read some of these stories. And I cheers with you. And I can't do that around him. I never did. What I did on the Weedy Week, I didn't do Weedy Weekend when he lived here. But what I did for smoking, anytime I needed it would be either in this room with the door closed and a fully circulatable window here wide open, and I just wouldn't let him back in the room. But in most cases when he was here, I went downstairs and hid. He never even knew what I was doing. The only reason he knows all about it now is because his mother has raised it as a concern. So this Weedy Weekend, tonight I don't drop him off. It's a long weekend here in Canada, and his mom asked if I'd take him another day. Of course I would. So he doesn't go home until tomorrow night, and I'm not delaying Weedy Weekend, so it'll be Weedless. Still do my best to deliver you a good, solid review of this week's news. In fact, in case I get angry or something like that, my son isn't here right now. He's with my other son. They've gone grocery shopping for me. My other son is visiting, helping with the difficulties that I have in everyday life, like doing my dishes. What a wonderful boy. He's 30 and, well, family, right? Family. So, I want to start Weedy Weekend with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. If a law is unjust, a man is not only right to obey it, he is obligated. Laws are passed because of the opinions and beliefs and desires of those in charge during its passing. Laws are not always just. It is our not only right to disobey a law, it is our obligation to point out where laws are poor and stepping on our rights, and the only way to fight them is to push those buttons like I did a couple of weeks ago on the Weedy Weekend. Actually had some weed. Those buttons need pushed because these laws are archaic and they have to change. And it's time to change the opinion of the stupid people behind these things that, I'm trying to keep my child safe to keep him away from marijuana. And while they say it, they sit there and take another shot of vodka. Hypocrisy in this world. Let people be. Laws are there to protect us from physical pain or interruption of our own rights by another person. That's all law is meant to do. It has nothing to do with what we do with ourselves and our families. That's our business. So I starting with a rant. And I want to cheers to that rant. But you know what? I can't cheers. But what I can do is while you cheers to it, I'm going to open this up and go and have a nice smell of deep chunk. Beautiful, beautiful I'll be doing a review of it later. Incredible stuff. I had the smell. Let's move on. Never done a weedy weekend like that, but what the hell? I'm here for change. My first story. My first story is really just a resharing of something I shared yesterday from, well, a 2-day thing. I'm resharing, excuse me, my unboxing from MMJ Total Healthcare that's called If Only I Could. The reason I'm sharing it on Weedy Weekend is I do feel that it needs to get a little further distribution. I'd like to see more views on it. The reason why is because I think I espouse some really important information there. It isn't just the fact that I'm pointing out, and I'll tell you quickly. It's a half hour. It's a few videos put together. It's Friday. I unboxed from MMJ Total Healthcare, but I'm not allowed to smoke, so I do an if only I could smoke, then this would do that for me. But then I found that MMJ had erred in their shipping and all the flour was missing from the shipment. And the rest of the video is Saturday getting the replacement shipment. One day later, less than 24 hours later, having that situation solved, so because they didn't want me to be without one. So I'm sharing it for two reasons. One is just to further show that they're human, but not only are they human, I've had similar issues. I mean, every company is going to mess up once in a while. This is the first mess up I've ever had with MMJ, but they solved it right away. I've had these type of mess ups with MedPot now and with Tweed and got nowhere. Nowhere. It's like banging your head against a brick wall. There's a lot of pain in fighting that. There was no fight or pain in dealing with MMJ. But the other important thing is the if only I could. I want to get that out there. I'm really putting out the feelers to try to get those people who are also having their rights stepped on while they try to legally medicate. I'd really like to hear from y'all, or if you know somebody, pass me on to them, or them on to me to watch me, because we need to all get together. There needs to be a class action lawsuit against the government that if as per R.V. Smith, Regina versus Smith, as per that Supreme Court ruling, cannabis in all forms is a medicine, and as a medicine, when prescribed, carries the full rights of all other medicines. Therefore, I call upon any of you having your rights stepped on to come forward. We'll find us a lawyer. We'll solve this. Next story. And this is a history of cannabis prohibition. It's an interesting one because it kind of gives you, a lot of people have this, well, if marijuana was prohibited, and shortly after after they learned prohibition is wrong because they ended the prohibition of alcohol, they must have had really good reason to prohibit marijuana. And I have heard people say that. But you know what? In today's world, don't say they must have, or I think this, or I think that. Look it up. Because it isn't true. What was more true was there was non-alcohol prohibition department. There was a prohibition department of the federal government. And if they're ending prohibition of one thing, they need to prohibit another, or they don't have a department. It was either close the department or make something else illegal and really spend a lot of time on it. And Harry Anslinger, who was in charge of all of this, used to be a proponent of cannabis and say it was safe. And then when they ended the prohibition of liquor, he turned it around and started the prohibition of alcohol. What evidence did Harry have to its? He was calling it, you'll lose your sanity, you'll lose your connection of thought, you'll become some erotic character. And I'm quoting now, what evidence did Harry Anslinger have? It turns out at this time he wrote to the 30 leading scientists on this subject, asking if cannabis was dangerous and if there should be a ban. 29 wrote back and said no. Anslinger picked out the one scientist who said it's bad and presented him to the world. The press, obsessed with Victor Licata's acts, cheered them on. Read the story. Really interesting to know the history of how this plant went under. There are other avenues that coincided with this to bring the plant down. There are other reasons, but this is a good one. This is a good one and a good story. The next story. Cheers. The next story from Aurora, Colorado. The youngest child ever is now being monitored for CBD oil. They keep calling it in this story hemp oil. It isn't hemp oil. It's made from Charlotte's Web, which is marijuana, not hemp. Hemp is a strain of marijuana, but it is not super rich in CBD, which Charlotte's Web is, and it has almost no THC, which Charlotte's Web does have THC. I want honesty in these reports. I'm tired of people skirting around certain issues and shit like that to get out the good part of the story. Just be honest with it all. She's taking marijuana. She's a little tiny baby that was having 13 or 25 seizures a day. And already they're monitoring. It's very early. I'm going to ask you to just read it, follow it, play the video, feel your heart. How can this plant be bad when it's saving lives like this? Yes, there was something else. She wasn't having seizures when on the pharmaceutical seizure medication, but she was slowly killing her liver as a baby. We need healthier things. We need to get away from pharmaceuticals. And these people said they just wanted something natural that would work. And if there is something natural that works, why use something chemical? It's a great story. It's a great story. It'll be below, as all my stories are. And I love the medical side of this plant. I love every side of this plant. I love the look of this plant. I love sharing this plant. Before we move on, let's have a cheers to that little baby. That's the only way I can cheers, boy. Deep chunk, when you smell it in here, I can't wait to try it. It smells like chocolate milk. And I'm going to just show it to you. Just look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. The colors are deep. The trichomes are on everything. It is a wondrous, wondrous plant. How anyone could hate something so beautiful, I don't get it. On to the next story. The next story is one about money. I hate talking about money. I don't like money. Legal marijuana sales hit 5.4 billion in 2015. Last year, 5.4 billion of legal marijuana. Now, imagine how much when there's 52% of the US is now has some form of legal marijuana, or at least marijuana laws that may not be fully enacted yet. Canada has medical marijuana and has for 20 years. If legal, so therefore almost half of the states don't even have medical, almost half. So imagine how much illegal marijuana sales are going on if legal marijuana sales are 5.4 billion in 1 year. Imagine the money that's being sunk out of the world, out of circulation, into the black market to keep people who sometimes aren't very nice to oh, my son's contacting me. I've lost my train of thought, but basically there's so much money to be had to take away from the criminals and put in the hands of people who are good, and to get rid of the criminal aspect of the local dealer who's just trying to help people, and the local knowledgeable grower who's just trying to help people, who currently has maybe criminal past, all because of the choice to help people. Think about that. Yes, there's a lot of money in it. And speaking of money in it, next story. Snoop Dogg, you idiot. Yes, you idiot. I think you're very smart, Snoop Dogg, to get your wallet in on the Canadian market as it starts to expand. But this story says he's partnering with Canadian marijuana producer Tweed. Probably the worst of the LPs, the one I'm leaving. Maybe, hopefully, he can turn them around and turn them into something better. I don't know what kind of partnership it is. Is he going to kind of take over and they're going to have who knows, maybe then it's a good thing. I put it out to you all. What do you think? Snoop's too smart. If he went to Smiths Falls, where the Hershey plant, that's what, I've been there. That's what Tweed uses, was the old Hershey plant on One Hershey Drive in Smiths Falls. Great big huge plant. And they grow marijuana in it now. Cross phenotypes and all that kind of stuff. I've talked about it. Their lead grower wasn't even a horticulturalist before he became a grower for Tweed. They don't seem to have a finger on the button of the weed world. Maybe Snoop can change that. Maybe he can make it better. Don't know. And if I look tired, I'm terribly tired. I've had my son for 2 days now, and so therefore for 4 days, I've gone without medicating and I've gone without sleep. I'm still trying. Moving on to the next one. Cheers, everybody. The next story is our silly Prime Minister is still, and so is the Ontario government, still talking about incorporating the sale of cannabis, recreational cannabis, in with liquor stores. For so many reasons it's wrong. I'm going to leave the story out there for you all, but a person like me is not going to walk into a liquor store. I won't even buy another adult something like on the way home. I hated that when I was married and my wife would say, "Hey, on the way home, can you stop and get me a bottle of wine?" Really? You want this guy who hasn't drank in see, 2003. This is 2016, 13 years. You want me to walk into a smelly liquor store that smells of alcohol and buy alcohol? Now, you government are suggesting that to get my healthy product of cannabis, should walk into a den of iniquity as a liquor store, smell all that crap, now mixed with the smell of many different weeds, and deal with people who have absolutely no knowledge of what I'm buying. It's not the same industry. This is not alcohol. This is a recreational, euphoric thing that's going to be legalized, but it is nothing like alcohol. It is a healthy, euphoric experience for those who don't have pain. It not only has nothing to do with alcohol, I can tell you the only time in my whole life I've ever had what's called a green out, and that's when you get sick from alcohol, from marijuana, is when I've had alcohol mixed with it. So I haven't had a green out since 2003. I don't know what just happened there, but that's one of these other stories that I want to read to you, coming alive. So we have to fight that, Canadians, and all of you in the US. Don't let that happen. You need specific people selling this product to adults. Yes, you might. Adults mean 18 in Canada, so 18-year-old going into a liquor store wanting to get some weed to help them with anxiety, even though, yes, he's not got a medical license, he's going to use it recreationally. He's going to walk into a liquor store and he's going to get no help. This is not what this product is meant for, as well as that's going to keep the criminal element in it. I've spoken many times on that. Let's move on. Could not load the page because Shockwave crashed. Oh well, it doesn't matter. This one I won't spend a lot of time on because it's, well, I raised two girls and a boy by myself. I was Mr. Mom, so this doesn't bother me too much, but it might bother some of you guys out there. New marijuana tampons claim to permanently relieve your cramps. Truly, from what I could read in this story, I think this is just a continuation of what I shared last week, is the marijuana vaginal suppositories, but they're talking about actually the tampon itself being laced with cannabis. It is fantastic, though. I suggest all of you ladies out there, and men, what's our worst trouble? Women and PMS. Come on. Help your lady out. Let her know that there's a natural way, better than Midol, better than any of those other extra strength Advil and hurting your liver. Something totally natural that, according to the people of the study, absolutely gets rid of the cramps. So imagine my second ex-wife, my most recent ex-wife, has a horrible cramp time, and this would do her such favors. So again, that story's below. I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about biology, so share this around with people. The more people realize the incredible extent of the medical properties of this plant, pretty well you just comment what you have, and I bet you it's going to help you. Not always, but there is no other medicine out there as versatile. And the final story. And this is from the Stoner's Cookbook. I share a lot from the Stoner's Cookbook. This is all about, what does marijuana have to do with dieting? It's so funny that Marijuana is associated with munchies. However, most of us stoners, I'm not fat. I've got the tummy. I've got the tummy that older men have because our fat, when it builds around our organs. It's just natural. But, and I've got to get this soon, and we're on the last story. I'll read this. It is also important to add that marijuana does, in fact, increase your metabolism. There you go. That's why. To tell you the truth, a lot of cannabis consumers will light up before heading to the gym. You will find over 100 testimonials from people who have lost 20 to 100 pounds and attribute it to marijuana. That's something important to think about. That's something important to close on. Let's all lose weight together while we enjoy food. Isn't that nice? It's just it's bringing our body back to where it was supposed to be. Proper metabolic rates. Cheers, peace, love, and harmony. Happy Weedy Weekend 41. See you next week and all during the week.